Hvala, ja ću izlagati na engleskom, iako zapravo danas sam shvatila da sasvim pristojno razumijem slovenski. The national pavilions of Yugoslavia at the world exhibitions in period between the two world wars, first at the exhibition of decorative arts of 1925 in Paris, then at the World Exhibitions of Barcelona in 1929 and Paris in 1937, and finally at one of the most important European fairs in Milan in 1931, materialized the change of the idea of the cultural identity of the newly established Kingdom of Serbs, Croatian and Yugoslavia and Slovenes, that is the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. When it comes to design, the most prevailing is modernized classicism and international style, moderate modernism, which fits into current European design trends and, in other words, represents Yugoslavia as a progressive state, also with traditional social values. Without exception, these are buildings expressing a relatively low level of architectural ambition and technological innovation. For Yugoslav architects Stjepan Hribar, Dragiša Brašovan and Josip Sajsel, the construction of the pavilions was a rare opportunity for international representation. Architecture was often excluded from national exhibitions of the fine arts organized abroad. For example, at the first Yugoslavian art exhibition in Geneva in 1918 and in Paris in 1919, the exhibitors were only painters and sculptors. As Yugoslav pavilions have been analyzed and elaborated already many times, the goal of this presentation is to map and to discuss exhibitions of Yugoslav architects held in the country and abroad. As such, this is probably the first overview of the exhibiting activities of Serbian, Croatian and Slovenian architects between the two world wars. This overview is a foundation for further research of exhibitions of Yugoslav architects abroad after 1945 within the the project that was just mentioned. Since the constitution of the architectural profession, the foundation of the first societies of engineers and architects in Zagreb in 878, in Belgrade in 890, and finally in Ljubljana in 1911, architects took part in collective exhibitions of artists and organized professional architectural exhibitions by themselves. The scope of exhibition events organized by architects already defined in the late 19th century. There are exhibitions of the Society of Engineers and of Architects members, exhibitions of the architectural and city planning competitions, exhibitions of the important public plans, buildings plans, such like National Theatre in Zagreb by Fellner and Helmer, annual exhibitions of pupils and students' work from art and craft schools, later from technical college and technical schools, reports from the exhibitions abroad and organization of visits to them, exhibitions of architecture of countries with which Yugoslavia has an intensive cultural and economic exchange. All of the exhibitions mentioned above are closely interrelated and had various degrees of influence of the national architectural production that it is its presentation abroad. The participation of architects at the so-called collective exhibitions of fine arts was a long-standing practice. It was conditioned by the small number of practicing architects as well. By the end of the First World War, architects from the Kingdom of Croatia and Slavonia participated in exhibitions of the Croatian Art Society and the Dalmatians in the exhibitions of the Association of Croatian Artists Medulić. After Medulić exhibition in Ljubljana in 1909, Jože Plečnik and Kamilo Tomčić also took part in the exhibition titled Despite an Unheroic Age in Zagreb in 1910. Although the members of the Croatian Society of Engineers and Architects announced their participation, they did not participate. The peak of the pre-war exhibition activity of architects, but also the first joint exhibition of Croatian and Serbian architects, was the fourth Yugoslavian exhibition in Belgrade in 912 architects. 29 of them exhibited in two sections, Croatian and Serbian. In addition to participating in the exhibition, Croatian architects planned a visit to Belgrade and Bulgaria, though it did not happen because of the war. Architects also exhibited an international exhibition, such as the Paris Expo in 9000, where Viktor Kovačić, Marković Bole, and Vancaš exhibited in the Hungarian pavilion. Serbia has represented with its own national pavilion. The first initiative for the exhibition of Yugoslav architecture after the First World War was launched by the Zagreb section of the Association of Yugoslav Engineers and Architects, established in 1919, on the occasion of the first annual assembly in Zagreb in 1920. Still, the exhibition didn't happen because Serbian architects and engineers' early plans and works were destroyed during the war. Another time, the architectural and engineering exhibition was planned annual assembly in Sarajevo in 1922. The focus was on post-war architectural production presented by drawings and photographs. The exhibition was planned in three sections: competition works, constructed works, and design constructions. The works were further divided into groups: architecture, city regulations, civil engineering, etc. Problems with the organization of the association's exhibition is an indicator of the general circumstances in the 1920s, the period of consolidation marked by a small number of exhibitions. Exhibitions of art and crafts school, technical colleges, and schools in Zagreb, Sarajevo, and Ljubljana were among the most frequent one at the time. Ljubljana-based architects were the most productive in the 1920s in a number of exhibitions. There were four of them, by painters, architects, and sculptors, Petar and Nikola Dobrović, and Gojmir Anton Kos and Lojze Dolinar. In 1925, two exhibitions by Dragutin Fatur and Tine Kos in 925 and 96, and a major exhibition on Slovenian modern art from 1918 to 1928 in June of 1928. At the later, architects Janko Omahen, Domician Sejrajnik, and Ivo Spinčić were also represented with their graphic works and theater scenography. The only joint performance of Yugoslav architects abroad in the 1920s took place at the Decorative Arts Exhibition in Paris in 1925. The Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes represented itself with a pavilion designed in the manner of Art Deco. The rejection of the Serbian Byzantine style of the Kingdom of Serbia pavilions at the international exhibitions before 1918 was more than obvious. The Croatian and Serbian architects participated at the International Exhibition of Architecture at the Esplanade des Invalides. Most of them belonged to the established generation of pre-war modernists, except Drago Ibler. The major exhibits were plans for the new capital, Belgrade. A key moment in launching the national exhibition production in the 1920s was the exhibition of Czechoslovak modern architecture held in 1928 in Zagreb and Belgrade. This exhibition was preceded by the Prague-based Society of Artists Maneš traveling exhibition presented in 1924, as we already heard, in Ljubljana, Zagreb, and Belgrade. Among the works were the building designed by Cubist architects Josef Gočar, Pavel Janak, Josef Kalus, Ladislav Mahon, and Ottokar Novotny. An exhibition of exclusively Czechoslovak architecture took place 4 years later. On the occasion of the 15th anniversary of the founding of the Club of Croatian Engineers and Architects, 286 works by over than 50 architects from Prague, Brno, Bratislava, and Zlin were on display. Exhibition was a turning point for the acceptance of Neues-Bauen in Yugoslavia, a new design approach as a legitimate architectural style. The break with historic isms and the change of generations became obvious at the World Exhibition in Barcelona in 1929. Compared with the previous pavilions of Serbia, Croatia, and Slovenia at the World Exhibitions, Dragiša Brašovac constructed an avant-garde one which explicitly demonstrated departure from historical styles. The exhibition of Czechoslovak architecture and increasing frequent architectural competitions became the driving force of exhibition activities. A new generation of architects use exhibitions to promote new design approach, construction techniques, and last but not least, the new social role of architecture as a constructive force in creation of more just society. Architects joined forces and the several groups that were founded. The Belgrade-based Group Arhitekata Modernog Pravca GAMP in late 1928, the Zagreb-based Udruženje Arhitekata Zemlja in 1929, and the Zagreb-based Klub Arhitekata. That was actually the group of architects gathered within Zemlja association, enlarged by just few members. In Ljubljana, the crucial was Club of Architects of National Yugoslav Society of Engineers and Architects. After autumn and spring exhibitions of fine arts in the new pavilion of Cvijeta Zuzorić in Belgrade, designed by Branislav Kojić, GAMP and Club of Serbian section of architects organized the first Salon of Architecture. Exhibition was presenting Serbian architects. Opened by Minister of Construction in the presence of King Alexander's representative. A critic of journal Politica concluded on exhibition, quote, "It is neither an exhibition of modern architecture nor an exhibition of architecture of a particular direction," end of quote. This comment referred also to the first exhibition of GAMP in Prague in May 1930. GAMP members exhibited projects in the spirit of new construction, but also those inspired by historical styles. The exhibition was aimed, quote, "to acquaint Czech technical circles with the development of modern technologies in our country and to introduce modern architecture in our country on our own," end of quote. Dragiša Brašov, an architect of the Yugoslav Pavilion in Barcelona, was newly elected president of GAMP this year. At the same time, Zagreb journal Novosti announced the participation of the Circle of Architects, Krug Arhitekata, along with other architects from Zagreb, Split and Belgrade, Erlich Vidaković, Armanda, Simić, Kojić, Zloković, Deroko, Dobrović, Neidhardt and others, at the most important event in 1930, an exhibition of Yugoslav art at the Tate Gallery in London, organized by the Yugoslav Society in London. It followed the presentation of contemporary British art at the exhibitions in Zagreb and Belgrade in late 1929 and 30. The architectural section London exhibition was organized by Jože Plečnik. The works were accepted by the local juries of the clubs of architects of Yugoslav Society of Engineers and Architects. However, the architectural section is not presented in the catalogue, and none of exhibition's overviewers mentioned it. It seems that the proposed architectural production was too avant-garde to represent Yugoslavia to the British public. This claim needs further investigation. Nevertheless, the new architecture was frequently presented at home in the second half of the 1930 and 1931. In autumn 1930, Zagreb hosted an international congress of builders accompanied by an exhibition presented works of Czechoslovakian, Hungarian, Austrian, Croatian and Slovene builders. In February 1931, the first exhibition of contemporary Yugoslav architecture featuring Serbian, Croatian and Slovenian architecture took place in Belgrade. In total, 36 architects with 174 works were presented. In spring 1931, Belgrade and Zagreb hosted exhibition of contemporary German art and architecture, organized under the state patronage. The last important event was the third exhibition of Zemlja Association. Its unofficial catalogue was the book Problemi savremene arhitekture, presenting the works of Zagreb and Belgrade-based architects. Slovenian architects' major contribution was the journal Arhitektura, joined by editors teams from Belgrade and Zagreb. The architects involved in journal were engaged at the mentioned first exhibition of Yugoslav architecture in February 1931. The extremely successful sequence of events did not have its equivalent counterpart abroad that could be compared with the exhibition of Czechoslovakian, German and French architecture in Yugoslavia that occurred in 28, 31st and 34 in year 1934. The highlight in Brašovan's construction of the Yugoslav Pavilion at the Milan Fair, while the exhibitions organized abroad resulted from private efforts of groups and individuals, such as exhibition of Zemlja in the Galerie Billet in Paris, Otto Goldscheider's participation in the International Building Exhibition in Berlin in 1931, and exhibition of Petar and Nikola Dobrović in The Hague, Rotterdam and Amsterdam, and finally the participation of Croatian architects in the National Congress and the accompanying exhibition of architecture in Budapest. All events took place in 1931. After the exhibition in 1925, the only major event in which Yugoslav architects took part was the exhibition of international architecture organized by journal L'Architecture d'aujourd'hui in Paris in 1933. The Yugoslav section was comprised of only 10 architects and a total of 12 works selected on the basis of their social professional positions. Most of them were professors at the National Architecture School, schools or worked in municipal or regional technical departments. Most modest collective performances were organized by architect Ljubomir Ilitch, a Croatian architect residing in Paris. Paris became center of exhibition activities of Yugoslav architects abroad in the second part of the 1930s. Young architects living in Paris, Ernest Weissman and Jure Neihart, along with Milan Sever, exhibit in the Galerie Cahiers d'Art in 1935. We also heard before that the ongoing collaboration with Bulgarian artists give at the same time an opportunity to architects to exhibit in Bucharest and Plovdiv too. In 1934, 2 exhibitions of Yugoslav artists took place in Sofia, the artists of Zemlja and the group Oblik. At the later, there were Dragiša Brašova, Njan Dubovi, Zloković and Branislav Kojić of the GAMP, disbanded at the same year. After 1931, the first half of the 1930s was marked by severe economic crisis, which was directly reflected in architectural exhibitions in Yugoslavia. The UAS Club of Architects in Zagreb and Ljubljana organized their exhibitions in 1932 and 1933 with an aim of finding potential employers through public appearances. For the first time, there was an exhibition of female architect Dušana Šentlov, when we speak of Slovene architects, female architects. UIA did not succeed to organize its national exhibition planned for a period of time. The last manifestation was the exhibition of the Belgrade Club of Architects in 1938. Furthermore, as formally, new architecture was publicly accepted in early 1930s, architects returned into their national scenes. The second exhibition of contemporary Yugoslav architecture in February 1933 presented almost exclusively Serbian architects and only 3 guests from Zagreb: Zemljak, Steinman and Muršec. Sarajevo architects joined the exhibitions of Sarajevo-based artists in Belgrade in Sarajevo, while the Croatian architects participated in the 1938 exhibition Half a Century of Croatian Art, or the Pola vijeka Hrvatske umjetnosti. The most significant innovation in exhibition production in the 1930s were research, analytical and thematic exhibitions. The architects focused on a severe housing crisis and inhuman living conditions of workers and peasants. The architects group Zemlja, joined by architects collective Radna Grupa Zagreb, produced thematic documentary section Kuća I život on Zagreb workers' housing conditions in 1932, and in 1934 Stjepan Planić prepared the section on living conditions of peasants. During the same year, a weekend house, mountain cottage with accompanying farm building and the regulation plans for rural settlements were displayed at Ljubljana Autumn Fair. This is something completely new for me. I didn't know for that before. This is something that can be interrelated with these events that has direct relation to Zemlja. Plans were joined by a constructed weekend house designed by Jože Mesar. And the next year, when architects presented the issue of tourism, it became an important economic force in years to come. In the second half of the 1930s, the political turn towards the Axis powers resulted in the renewal of a more traditional approach, classicist forms in public architecture. This process is more than obvious in Josip Seisel's competition design and constructed Yugoslav pavilion at the World Expo in Paris in 1937. When exhibitions of Yugoslav architecture abroad are in question, ironically, the last was the section of Yugoslav female architects at the exhibition. Also, we heard before about of female architects at the exhibition of female artists of the Little Entente in 1938. Apart from being unique due to its gender character, this exhibition is also the only traveling architectural and international exhibition. Thanks to this exhibition, organized under the auspice of Yugoslav and Romanian queens and Hana Beneš, the Czechoslovakian president's wife, Yugoslav female architects exhibit in Belgrade, Zagreb, Ljubljana, Bucharest, Šuj, Černauci, Prague, Brno, and Bratislava. Serbian, Croatian, and Slovenian architects, female architects, were the most numerous. Besides them, only Czechoslovakian architects Augusta Millerova and Milada Pavlikova Petrikova took part. Now I would like to come to a conclusion. Apart from world exhibition and fairs, architectural exhibitions abroad were organized predominantly by associations of artists and architects and individuals. Their foreign displays were usually preceded by exhibitions of foreign art and architecture in Yugoslavia. For example, the GAMP exhibition in Prague, preceded by the exhibition of the Czechoslovakian architecture in Belgrade and Zagreb, while the display of Zemlja in Paris by the exhibition of contemporary French art organized by the Billet Gallery. The main objective of exhibitions was to show the modernity of national architectural production, hence to present its engagement in ongoing European trends. As the new tendencies became more accepted, the exhibitions became more rare. Apart from exhibitions of professional societies organized at the eve of 1930s financial crisis in Zagreb and Ljubljana, none of the exhibitions organized abroad had commercial character. This characteristic will change in post-war socialist Yugoslavia, when architecture exhibition will be besides the cultural environmental a commercial product. I'm sorry for this mistake at the end. Thank you very much.